He said he loved me, said we were building a future. And then I opened the mailbox and saw a wedding invitation with a different woman's name on it. If you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart and got burned, you might understand what I went through. Let me take you through it. My name is Brenna Lowell. I'm 31 and I work as a trauma nurse in Boise, Idaho. I've never been the kind of person to rush love, but when I met Zayden Roche, something felt different. He had that easy smile, smooth voice, and a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. We started dating, and before I knew it, 3 years had passed. Zayden was always chasing his big break in real estate. He flipped homes, or at least tried to. He never really had steady income, but he had dreams, big ones, and he said we'd chase them together. Then one day, he came to me looking stressed, more serious than I'd ever seen him. He said he'd found the perfect property, a rundown old home he could flip for a fortune. It's a once-in-a-lifetime deal, he told me. But he didn't have the money. He said the bank wouldn't approve him in time, and if he missed this, he'd lose everything he'd worked for. He said we'd move into it together once it was done, that it would be our home. I should have thought longer, asked more questions. But love makes you blind sometime. I had $24,000 left from my grandfather's inheritance. Money he left me in his will with a letter saying, "Build a life you're proud of." I added the rest through a personal loan, $42,000 in total. I transferred it straight to Zayden's business account. After that, he changed. He became distant, didn't answer calls right away, skipped date nights, always too tired or too busy to talk. His phone was always face down, and when I asked if everything was okay, he said I was being paranoid. Then, about 3 weeks later, I opened my mailbox and found a cream-colored envelope. It was thick, fancy, clearly an invitation. I opened it and felt my stomach twist. It was a wedding invitation. The groom? Zayden Roche. The bride? Delaney Voss. A woman I had never even heard of. I read the names again, hoping it was a mistake. But it wasn't. My hands were shaking. My chest felt tight. I couldn't believe it. He told me he loved me. He took my money, my trust, my future, and gave it to someone else. I stood there on my porch, frozen, holding the invitation like it had punched me in the face. And in that moment, something in me broke, but something else woke up. I don't remember dialing his number. My hands moved on their own. My heart pounded in my chest like it wanted to escape. He picked up on the third ring. "Bren," he said, like nothing was wrong. I couldn't even breathe. "I got an invitation," I said. "To your wedding." There was silence on the other end. Then a sigh. "It's complicated," he said. "I was going to tell you. We just haven't had a moment to talk." "A moment?" I said, my voice cracking. "You're marrying someone else, Zayden." He said he'd explain, that we should meet. I didn't want to see him, but I needed to. I needed answers, even if they'd break me. We met at a coffee shop off a quiet road. He wore the same leather jacket I once bought him for his birthday. I almost laughed at the sight of it, how small it felt now. He sat down across from me like it was any normal day. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he started. "This isn't what it looks like." I stared at him, waiting. He looked down, then back up. "Her name's Delaney Voss. Her father's huge in real estate. Big-time investor. I've been trying to get his attention for months. And marrying his daughter is your way in?" I asked, numb. He didn't even flinch. "It's business, Brenna. That's all. I still love you." I wanted to scream, but my voice was barely a whisper. "You took everything from me. I'll pay you back," he said quickly, "once the projects go through. This is temporary. A stepping stone. For us." "For us?" I repeated. "You're marrying someone else, Zayden." His eyes were calm, cold even. "It's just paperwork. You and me, we're real. This is just for the future." And that's when it hit me. I was never the future. I was the tool. The bank. The quiet supporter in the background while he played the lead. He didn't love me. He used me. My inheritance, my trust, my loyalty. All traded in so he could slide a ring onto another woman's finger and smile for the cameras. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I held my head high. "You made your choice," I said. "Now watch what I do with mine." Then I walked away, heart shattered, but something stronger beginning to form inside me. The first night after I walked away from Zayden, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every promise, every "I love you" that now felt like a lie. But by morning, I wasn't crying anymore. I was focused. I pulled out my laptop, opened my bank statements, and started scrolling. I found the exact date I wired him the $42,000. I printed it. Then I dug through my texts. There it was, Zayden thanking me for believing in our dream, saying I wouldn't regret it. I took screenshots. I found old emails where we discussed the property, ones where he sent photos and blueprints. Everything I could find, I saved. Every receipt. Every word. Every lie. By the end of the day, I had a manila folder stuffed with proof that my money paid for the house he now claimed as his own and planned to live in with someone else. That's when I called Micah. Micah Trent and I went to nursing school together before she switched to law. Now she's a real estate attorney and one of the few people I still trusted. I told her everything, every detail, and handed her the folder. She didn't say much at first. Just flipped through the papers slowly, eyebrows raised. "Wow," she finally said. "He really thought you wouldn't fight back, huh?" "I don't want to go public with this," I told her. "I don't want the drama. I just want what's mine." Micah nodded. "You might have more power than you think." She explained that while the house was titled only under Zayden's name, my financial contribution gave me legal grounds to claim an equitable interest in the property. If we moved fast, we could file a lien against the home. That would stop him from selling, refinancing, or transferring it without involving me. My stomach turned when she confirmed what I already suspected. The house was never meant to be ours. It was always in his name. But instead of falling apart, I smiled. Because now I had a plan. I wasn't going to scream or post online or beg him to do the right thing. I wasn't even going to warn him. No, I was going to be quiet, cold, strategic. Let him enjoy his little engagement. Let him think I was broken, curled up somewhere with tissues and sad music. He had no idea what was coming. While he played pretend husband to a rich girl, I'd become something far scarier than an ex-girlfriend. I'd become a problem he couldn't ignore. And it all started with one little folder, and the truth he thought I'd never use against him. A week after meeting with Micah, things started moving fast. While she worked on filing the lien and ownership claim, I started digging into the wedding. Not out of curiosity. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was strategy. I found the wedding planner's name on the bottom corner of the invitation, Eloise Montgomery Events. A quick search brought up her website. I called using a calm, cheerful voice I barely recognized as mine. "Hi, I'm newly engaged," I said, giving a fake name, Claire Bennett. "I saw your work and just loved it. Do you have availability around next month?" The assistant on the phone chirped back with opening, and soon enough, Eloise herself called to welcome me to the bride family. She was chatty, proud, easy to steer. I let her talk, pretending to be excited but overwhelmed. I mentioned I'd heard she was planning a vineyard wedding nearby. "Lakeside, I think?" She giggled and spilled everything. Venue name, caterers, decor theme, even the number of guests. "It's going to be so elegant," she said. "Our bride Delaney has such tasteful ideas." I kept my tone sweet. Took notes. Got every detail I needed. The wedding was scheduled for 3 weeks from now. A lakeside vineyard 2 towns over. Very public. Very expensive. Perfect. While I played the excited bride on the phone, Micah worked on the legal side. She officially filed for a lien against the house and submitted documentation for co-ownership. With everything in order, she said we had a solid case. It wouldn't be quick, but it was strong. Zayden and Delaney were away that weekend on a pre-wedding spa retreat, according to Eloise. I used the time. The house was still legally his, but I had a copy of the key. And a locksmith on speed dial. I didn't trash the place. I didn't yell or break things. I walked through the front door, calm and quiet. I changed the locks, tidied up a little, sat on the couch, and let it all settle in. Then I left one thing behind, a white envelope taped to the door. Inside, a single piece of paper. On it, I had written, "Thanks for the house." And the paperwork is filed. Love, B. No anger. No threats. Just the truth. I locked the door, exhaled, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. It was a quiet Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen wearing old sweatpants, a worn hoodie, and fuzzy socks. Coffee in hand, I sat at the counter flipping through a book, the sun pouring through the window. Peaceful. Almost ordinary, until the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I saw 2 women standing there. One of them, tall, poised, dressed like she walked out of a bridal magazine, was instantly familiar from the photos I'd found online. Delaney Voss. Next to her stood a woman about the same age, holding a leather clutch and looking equally uncomfortable. I didn't say anything, just raised an eyebrow. Delaney cleared her throat. "Hi. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Delaney. I think you know who I am." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know." Her eyes scanned the porch, then the front door. "Zayden mentioned this house. I wanted to see it for myself. He said he designed everything." I stepped aside. "Come in, then." She hesitated but walked in, her maid of honor following silently. They looked around, at the living room, the kitchen, the floors, the furniture. I leaned casually against the kitchen island, coffee still in hand. "So this is the house Zayden's been telling you about?" She gave a small nod, clearly unsure how to handle me. I reached behind me and grabbed a manila folder off the counter. I'd prepared it days ago, just in case. I slid it across the counter to her. On the front, written in bold black marker, "Here's what you're really marrying." Delaney looked down at it, then opened it slowly. Inside were printed bank statements showing the $42,000 I gave Zayden. Text messages with him saying the house was ours. Screenshots of emails where we talked about the kitchen renovation, color palettes, tile sample. A photo of us from just a few months ago, his arm around me, laughing, clearly in love. Delaney flipped through every page in silence. I watched her face. No tears. No gasps. Just the slow realization settling behind her eyes. When she got to the last page, she closed the folder and held it against her chest. I didn't come here to argue, she said softly. I needed to know. You deserve to, I replied. Whatever choice you make after this, make sure it's yours, not his. She nodded. Her friend gently touched her elbow, signaling it was time to go. Delaney looked at me one last time. Thank you, she said quietly. Then they turned and walked out, heels clicking softly against the hardwood. She didn't cry, didn't yell. But as the door closed behind her, I knew I'd left a crack in the perfect little story Zayden had told. And cracks always spread. The wedding was supposed to start at 4 p.m. sharp. Guests filled the lakeside vineyard, dressed in pastels and linen suits, sipping champagne and waiting for the picture-perfect moment. White roses lined the aisle, string music played softly in the background, and the sun was just starting to dip low enough to give everything that golden glow. But something was off. People glanced at their watches, murmured to each other. The groom was already standing at the altar, Zayden in a tailored navy suit, trying to smile but clearly sweating through his shirt. His tie looked too tight. His phone buzzed again and again in his hand. Each time he looked at it, his expression grew darker. Delaney never appeared. No bridesmaids. No soft music change. No whispered she's coming down the aisle. Just more silence. And time dragging on. At 4:30, the string quartet stopped playing. At 4:45, the officiant gently approached Zayden and said something no one could quite hear. Zayden shook his head, waved him off. Guests shifted uncomfortably, whispering. By 5:15, most had figured it out. Some pretended to stretch, others just quietly walked out. A few stayed behind out of morbid curiosity, watching Zayden pace the grass, phone still glued to his hand, face stormy. The ceremony never started, because there was no bride, and by the time the sun finally set behind the vineyard trees, the only thing left standing under the floral arch was Zayden. Alone. That night, while I was home reading on the porch, my phone started to buzz. Once. Then again. And again. 17 calls in total, all from Zayden. I didn't answer. Then a voicemail came through. His voice was low, shaky, angry. You ruined everything. I know you talked to her. She's gone. The deal's gone. Everything's gone. I'll fix this, okay? Just call me back, please. I listened to the message once, then deleted it. There was nothing left to say. He made his choices. He built his empire on lies, thinking no one would ever question the foundation. But I had. And now the whole thing was falling apart, one broken vow at a time. Zayden thought he was marrying into power. Instead, he stood in front of everyone and got exactly what he deserved. Nothing. The day after the wedding disaster, Zayden finally showed up at the house. I heard the knock, followed by the jangle of keys trying to open the lock I had already changed. Then came the banging. I opened the door just enough to see his face, angry, desperate, and completely disheveled. You can't just live here, he snapped. This is my house. I didn't flinch. Actually, that's not what the paperwork says anymore. You're squatting, he growled. You gave me that money as a gift. You don't own anything. Then let's let the court decide, I said calmly and closed the door in his face, which, as it turns out, was exactly what we did. Micah had already filed everything. Proof of the $42,000, all the messages, emails, the wedding invite. Every receipt of my trust. It was airtight. We weren't just asking for a lien anymore. We were pushing for legal co-ownership of the property. Zayden, of course, fought back. He filed a countersuit claiming I had supported him like a girlfriend would, with no written agreement, no expectations. That it was all just generosity. But generosity doesn't come with contracts, wire transfers, and years of text messages referencing shared dreams, renovations, and promises. And I had them all. The hearing was short. Zayden showed up in an ill-fitting blazer, clearly rattled. He tried to charm the judge, but his voice cracked halfway through. He spoke about love and confusion, said I was bitter, said this was revenge. Micah stood calmly beside me, presenting every single piece of evidence like clockwork. The judge barely looked at Zayden during the decision. In light of the documented financial contributions and intent expressed in communications, the court finds sufficient cause to recognize Ms. Lowell as a co-owner of the property in question, the judge said. Her name will be added to the deed, and she is granted primary occupancy. Zayden's jaw dropped. Mine stayed steady. That weekend, he was served the court order at a friend's apartment, the same friend he had been crashing with ever since Delaney vanished from his life. He tried calling again. I didn't answer. This time, there was no voicemail. He'd lost. I wasn't just the girl he used anymore. I was the co-owner of the house he thought he could steal. The same house he had promised to build a life in, with me, then with someone else. Now it was mine too, and there wasn't a thing he could do about it. Some victories don't come loud. They come in legal stamps, courtroom silence, and the sound of a man who thought he had it all, realizing he's locked out. With the house finally in my name, it no longer felt like his. It started to feel like mine. The first thing I did was rip out that awful faux marble backsplash Zayden had insisted on. He thought it made the kitchen look expensive. I always thought it looked like cheap plastic. In its place, I installed deep blue tile, the exact shade my grandfather loved. He used to say it reminded him of the ocean he never got to visit. Every time I looked at it, I felt a little more at peace. I painted the living room a warm, earthy green, replaced the cold chrome fixtures with softer ones, added plants, rearranged furniture. I wanted the house to breathe, to reflect me, not the mess Zayden had left behind. And then one morning, just as I was cleaning up breakfast, I heard a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole. It was him. Zayden stood there in wrinkled clothes, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, eyes heavy like he hadn't slept in days. I opened the door only halfway. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. He sighed, looking past me into the house. "I wanted to talk. There's nothing to say. Please, Bren. I messed up. I know that. I lost everything. I don't even care about the house anymore. I don't know what I was thinking." I stayed quiet, staring at him. For the first time, he didn't look slick or confident. He looked small. "You used me to build your future," I said calmly. "I'm using that future to rebuild mine." He blinked, then took a step forward. "Nope," I said quickly. "Don't even try." When he didn't back away, I closed the door and called the sheriff. I wasn't about to argue. I wasn't giving him another inch. He waited in his car while the officer spoke with him. He didn't fight, didn't yell, just sat there and watched as I stood on the porch with the locksmith, again, changing the locks for the final time. He hadn't been welcome for a long time. Now he knew it. And as the new keys clicked in my hand, I realized something. He might have started this house. But I finished it. And now it finally felt like home. A few quiet weeks passed after the last time I saw Zayden. The house was finally mine, legally, emotionally, spiritually. I spent my mornings drinking coffee on the porch and my evenings rearranging furniture just because I could. No noise, no chaos, no lies buzzing in my ear. Just peace. Then one afternoon, a certified letter arrived in the mail. I opened it slowly, not sure what to expect. Inside was a typed notice from the court. Zayden's wages were officially being garnished. Monthly payments toward the $42,000 he owed me. Attached was a check, $7,000, the first payment. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because life is strange. The same man who once stood in my kitchen and promised me the world was now being legally forced to return what he took, piece by piece. I took that check to the bank, cashed it without hesitation, and texted Micah. "Dinner's on me tonight." We met at our favorite little place downtown. Over wine and pasta, I handed her a copy of the garnishment order like it was a trophy. "You did it," she said, grinning. "We did it," I corrected. He thought I'd stay quiet, that I'd disappear. He was wrong. Micah raised her glass. To receipts, revenge, and real friends. We clinked glasses and laughed, not bitterly this time, but freely. A few days later, another envelope arrived in the mail. This one was cream-colored, thick and elegant, familiar. Another wedding invitation. But not from Zayden. It was from Delaney. She was getting married that winter. To someone else. The card was simple and tasteful. The date was set for December. The venue was a snowy mountain lodge in Colorado. Tucked inside was a handwritten note. "Thank you for the honesty. I hope you kept the house. D." I read it twice, then set it down on the counter, stunned. Delaney had walked away quietly, but she hadn't forgotten. She'd made a clean break, just like I did. Maybe we were more alike than either of us realized. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She knew. I knew. We had both escaped the same storm. And now, we were each standing on our own, with futures no longer tied to a man who thought we'd be too polite, too broken, or too scared to fight back. Turns out, he was wrong about both of us. And yes, I kept the house. Life, for once, was quiet, and I liked it that way. I lived in the house full-time now. Not just legally, but emotionally. It no longer felt like the place where I got lied to or it felt like mine. Every corner, every color, every piece of furniture now reflected me. I added a little garden in the backyard, just herbs and tomatoes for now, but it gave me something to care for, something that grew because I took care of it. I painted the porch chairs a soft green, threw on some new cushions, and started hosting small dinners. Just close friends, people who never left when things got ugly. Micah came by often, always with wine and something from the bakery she liked. We'd sit on the porch, watch the sun go down, and talk about everything and nothing. Sometimes neighbors would ask about the story behind the house. I'd just smile and say, "Long one. But it's mine now." Once, someone asked if I regretted any of it. The money, the heartbreak, the legal mess. I shook my head and said, no, I just wish I'd bought it in my own name first. Months passed. Then one evening, while I was trimming flowers near the porch, my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in a long time flashed on the screen. Zayden. I stared at the message. Do you ever miss us? That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a memory he wanted to stir. I didn't open it. Didn't respond. Some things are better left unread. Later that evening, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine. The sky was pink and gold, the air warm with a hint of breeze. I watched the garden sway gently, heard laughter from my kitchen where friends were finishing dessert. And I smiled to myself. This wasn't the life Zayden promised. It was better. I raised my glass, looked out toward the sunset, and said out loud, softly but clear, best wedding gift I've ever given myself. What would you have done if you were in Brenna's place? Walked away and rebuilt your life, or given him another chance? I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this speak to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next.